By Budsberg, you had a near-death experience this January. How did this happen? 1.
In January, I was returning from the Engadin Valley, that is, from vacation. While I was driving, I suddenly felt a terrible pain in my chest. In my 71 long years of living this life, I had already encountered and endured so many different and difficult kinds of pain. But I had never experienced pain like this before. It felt as if someone was splitting my chest in two. I was the one driving the car. Luckily, I had a colleague with me who was accompanying me. I told him, "I can't drive anymore, please take the wheel." During the journey, I sat hunched over in the seat. And then from the car, I called for an ambulance. After that, I was admitted to the emergency room at Sant'Anna Hospital in Lucerno. I was examined there, but the findings were not promising at all, because they told me that my aorta, the upper aorta, had ruptured. We have two abdominal aortas. One is in the abdominal region, the other is at the level of the chest cavity. They told me I would have upper aorta surgery. That's what I was told. Then a professor came in and he didn't say anything reassuring to me. "Mr. Butzberger," he said, "your condition doesn't look good at all. Anything could happen. Maybe when you wake up from anesthesia, you might have to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. Or you could be paralyzed from the waist down or become mentally disabled," he said. But because of my job, I already knew. I had to make a quick decision and get things back on track. So the two options presented to me were either to give in to fear or to trust. And I chose to trust. The moment I decided to fully trust, I became calm and felt a sense of peace inside. My son and daughter called me and asked if they could talk to the professor. So I asked the professor if he would agree to see them, because I wasn't allowed to have visitors. Because of the coronavirus disease, that is COVID-19, there were strict precautions and everything was isolated. The professor was very kind and said he would like to welcome both of them in his office. Then my children sat down with him and talked about everything. That's how things unfolded.
Then, during the surgery, you had a near-death experience.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. While I was being operated on by the doctors, I left my earthly body. I found myself floating above my body and looked at myself. At that moment, I suddenly passed into another dimension. I saw my late spouse. He appeared to me as a beautiful being made of light. When I saw my spouse at that moment, you can imagine my state. I was overwhelmed with joy. This was truly the peak of emotions for me, because we had spent more than 45 years together. We really had a wonderful marriage. In fact, I always felt that he was by my side. But he had never appeared before me. I truly felt like I was in heaven. There was a divine harmony all around me. I can say it was a heavenly place. That's all I can say. Even today, when I relive that moment, I still get goosebumps. I surrendered myself to these wonderful energies. Every time I remember, this feeling returns. Then we talked about our daughter and our son. This was actually quite ordinary. Simply being able to communicate on a spiritual level. But at the same time, it was very emotional. We didn't even need words. Everything was on an emotional level. At the same time, the communication was truly perfect. Then he told me to stay calm. And I saw that the professor was really performing the operation with an amazing team. Then all of a sudden, I said to my spouse, "Listen, I actually want to stay here. In fact, I don't want to go back." I said, "They need to stop the surgery." Then I very clearly heard him say, "No, you can't stay here yet. You have other duties. You still have things to do." You have to go back many more times. You need to be ready for this. And I said, okay, so that's how it is. But actually, I was sure that everything would be as good and beautiful as before. And it was. I was so calm, I no longer had even a moment of doubt. I had no thoughts about living in a wheelchair or being paralyzed from the waist down. All those worries were in the past. What did your spouse look like? My spouse was just as he had been throughout his life. He was simply a body of light. All his facial features were young and vibrant. He stood before me with a freshness in full bloom. He was shining brilliantly. Age had no meaning. Everything was made up of energy. How can I describe it? An incredible energy was radiating from him. We didn't need to speak in the way we do on Earth, because in fact everything was happening through energy. Did you sense the presence of any other beings besides your spouse? Yes, but at this point in my life I'm 21. I'll have to go back to my old age, because I have a memory of a time when I considered committing suicide. I had planned everything. That was a period when I couldn't cope with my surroundings and my life. I had no definition of meaning or purpose in life. That's why I intended to end everything. I had prepared everything. Just as I was about to cut my vein with a knife, suddenly 2 extremely powerful pillars of light appeared there. One was on my left and the other on my right. A very powerful voice said to me, "Armin, stop it, don't do this. First of all, you still have some tasks to fulfill in your life, and secondly, if you end your life and leave without fulfilling your life's purpose, you will have to continue from where you left off later on." That's when, at the age of 21, I realized for the first time that I needed to keep going. Before this event happened, no one had ever been able to properly answer the questions I was so curious about regarding life. Well, now I understood. It was very clear that I needed to keep going. This was definitely a very clear message for me. And during the surgery, those 2 pillars of light appeared to me again. They were exactly, completely the same. The shimmering glow of the pillars, the power of the light, the strong divine energy radiating from them was the same. Then to me, as you can see, your gut is telling you the same thing. You can't stay here because you still have some tasks to do. Now, after this, we are offering you some content about how you can apply certain things in daily life. Just try. After I returned to my body, I immediately realized that all of this was still present for me. Then the professor came and said to me, "Mr. Budsberger, my nerves were very strained. This was a very difficult operation and I pushed myself to the limit of my strength." To that, I said to him, "Thank you very much. Actually, I witnessed everything." I said, "If you allow me, I would like to tell you a few things." He replied, "Yes, of course, go ahead. I'm open to these topics. Out of the hundreds of patients I've operated on so far, you are the second one to have such an experience. You can share your experience with me." So I started to explain. First of all, I must say that there is something very clear. In your previous life, you were one of the best butchers. You were a masterful, excellent butcher at your craft. In this life, you studied and became one of the best surgeons. In this way, you created a connection with your past life. He looked at me without saying a word. At that moment, he was probably happy. At first, he looked at me in astonishment, but I'm sure he was deeply affected. "How did you know that he lived as another person in his previous life?" This message was conveyed to me through pillars of light. This situation was revealed by them. I've learned so many things I could tell you. As I said, I could share a lot. For example, about my family, about how I need to change my behavior towards them. So for instance, I learned to let go of my excessive attachment to my children. They are adults now. I shouldn't interfere with them constantly for no reason. They are independent people and I no longer need to intervene in their lives. This is their life and they still have learning processes they need to go through. That's basically the situation. After explaining that the professor was a different person in a past life, do you believe in reincarnation? Yes, I absolutely believe in reincarnation. Yes, we are inside a theater, because we are definitely souls in bodies. As a result, we all come from the same main source. It's just that we humans started to have experiences as independent beings. Our creator, in fact, it doesn't matter at all what we call the creator, God, Allah, Buddha, none of that matters. So simply put, all lives that we come from and were created from are products of this main source. We come from there. The Creator has equipped us with all the tools we need and has told us this. You can live and experience life. So we are in the process of creating our experiences. Here, we are within the most superficial layer of matter. In other words, we are where the world is. Now, in this difficult situation, we need to find a way out. How did this near-death experience affect your future life? First of all, I am sitting here in front of you, very much alive. 99.9% of patients diagnosed with my condition do not survive. The professor told me, you need to be very patient. It may take about 18 months until you recover. But I have no pain at all. I am a medical miracle. This gives me confidence that anything is possible. We must believe in ourselves. And we shouldn't get caught up in the negativity of the outside world. We need to let go of fear and trust ourselves. Mr. Berger, thank you very much for the interview. Thank you as well.